Welcome to Picks with the Professor, college basketball edition for Wednesday, December 13th. Jake, everybody is a little under the weather here, it seems like.
Yeah, it's it's that time of year, I guess, because something's got me, and I sound absolutely terrible. I apologize.
Yeah, I guess that's the way it goes. Right? The show must go on, and so we're all having a little bit of difficulties here. I talked about it yesterday. A quick little update on our situation. It seems like we're going to be in the hospital for a long time. Everything's still fine, but they're just keeping an eye on Mrs. Professor. So thankfully, neither one of us are sick, but we have our own situation. Jake, you're sick. Hopefully, cousin Jared's doing okay. Hopefully, he can hold down the fort for us with the health situation. So we're all just kind of battling through something here. But a solid little slate here on Wednesday. We got 3 games to cover. Only 3 no extended cut today because we are going to record NFL after this, and I believe we've got 7 picks, I think, for the NFL, and a couple extra A grades that are also available over on Dub Club. So a lot of content coming your way. Now, a recap from yesterday, missing the play of the day here, but still up, doing really well on that. The free show picks 2-0. Again, the ones that kind of ran through pretty quickly yesterday, with the last one looking really good at the moment. And so, Jake, you were unfortunately unable to come on the show and talk about those, but you had your hand in that. So props to you for those. Unfortunately, the timing of that got a little bit crazy. And then the A grade picks so far 7-6 with 1 to go. Hopefully we can again get those going back in a better direction than they have been so far. But overall, things could be a lot worse here for us. So hopefully you're enjoying this college basketball season. And as a reminder, if you want more picks, more information, team totals, projections, thresholds needed for A grades and B grades, access to our Discord chat where we're talking about hockey bets and NBA bets and people doing parlays and teasers and fantasy and player props. I mean, you name it, and we've got it over there. You can sign up using the link in the show description, that or the promo code there on screen QR code as well. That will all get you $5 off of your first month. And again, lock in 2023 prices. Your time is running out before prices jump in 2024. But again, just a bunch of information, a bunch of goodies over there on Dub Club. So join us over there. Check it out if you have it. We have some of the highest retention rates on Dub Club. That doesn't mean everybody's happy. Unfortunately, I can't make everybody happy, but I have tried to make a product for everybody. And so that's part of the reason I think we've got such great retention rates over there. All the information is worth people's money, makes you smarter, better. So check that out if you haven't yet. Otherwise, we'll get to it here. And there are some early games. We're going to kind of focus more on the later games. This is the early game that we're talking about here, 8 p.m. Eastern. UNC Asheville versus Auburn. Again, remember, there is a noon game here today. We do have an A grade pick on that. So if you're with us over on Dub Club, you already know about the A grade pick. So you already got your action going here for your afternoon game. But for this one, we're going to go over 147. Sideline says 148.5. Thinks we should get in the upper 40s. So 147 offers a little bit of value. We'd really like this to be in the mid 140s. But while Auburn has a good defense, they also have a good offense. UNC Asheville, better offense than defense. And Jake, we often talk about the things that happen when you have a battle of paces. Number one, Auburn is more fast than Asheville is more slow. And Auburn's the better team. And the faster team tends to have a better opportunity to control the pace. Partially just because even if you're a slower team, it takes a lot of discipline to not take the open shot. UNC Asheville is likely going to try to be playing catch up this game, so they're not going to be able to, they don't want to get into a half court game against Auburn like they might against some conference opponents. So we like the over 147, only C grade value here. If it drops about a point, then that would be B grade value. So you never know what the number's going on this, but if you can get more mid 140s, we like that even better. But still think this is worth being part of your card here for Wednesday night. Jake, tell us more.
Look, Auburn is a very, very good offense. They got Johnny Broom down low that just commands the paint. You've got Aiden Holloway, the freshman, who's something special. They've really had one game this year where they didn't score a ton of points, and that was the Appalachian State game. And I think we throw that one out. I think we've got enough proof that was an aberration. As the next game, they came out and put 100 on Indiana, who's a decent defensive team. I just think we're going to get a game that looks like that. We're going to get Auburn, a lot of Auburn here. And UNC Asheville has some offensive weapons. Their defense is bad. That helps Auburn. Their offense is good enough that they will score. I mean, they're not going to get shut out. I really like
That
Drew
would be
Pember.
really impressive. I would actually love to see that just because that would be incredible.
That would just be fantastic.
Yeah.
Drew Pember, great player. I think he'll make an impact the way he can shoot the three and as a big guy. UNC Asheville's best offensive weapon is getting to the free throw line. They get there a lot. They convert most of them. Auburn struggles a little bit with fouling. They rank in the 300s and like field goals or fouls or free throws to field goals made ratio, and that's putting your team at the line quite a bit, your opponent at the line quite a bit. So I think we get a bunch of extra points there for UNC Asheville, and Auburn runs away with this, and we get something that looks like 150.
This game is being played in Huntsville, Alabama. Auburn, of course, in the state of Alabama. It's about a 3.5-hour drive, though. I do expect more Auburn fans. There's more Auburn fans, obviously, in the state of Alabama. But the drive from Asheville is actually not really that much further. So with regards to the players, you maybe could argue that Auburn's going to get a slight edge from the crowd, but in reality, this is mostly somewhere between kind of a half neutral court edge and a true neutral court situation. So, that's just kind of a side note. We don't see a lot of neutral site one-off games like this. We tend to see them like we saw on Saturday, where there's like 4 of them, or Sunday I think we had in Madison Square Garden, 4 of them in the same play. So it's kind of a one-off here. But again, distance-wise, pretty neutral site. So just an FYI, I don't really think that changes much in this game. In fact, if anything, it's making the model project slightly less because neutral site games can tend to be a little bit slower to start looking at a new backdrop. And so if this game was to actually be played at Auburn, the model would probably put it more at about 150. But either way, around 150 is where we think the average outcome of this game is. Again, can never predict one game, can never predict who's going to get hot and not. And that's why we always talk about our confidence is in the totality of picks, in the totality of our process of the model, which has done so well with totals. It's kind of carried us so far. I have faith that sides will come around and carry us at some point later on. But at least for now, totals have been really good. And following this type of process has been good. So we're going to go over in this one. Would like a little bit better number, but still worth a play given all the points, Jake, that you were making. Which take us to 9 p.m. Eastern, Creighton and UNLV. Jake, I don't want to say the elephant in the room, but maybe for lack of a better word, of course, that with the unfortunate events at UNLV, they have played a game since the shooting did not perform quite as well. I have no idea how that's going to play out. I don't know their motivations. I don't know where their heads are. I don't know if that affected them. I don't know anything. We're not there. I don't know. I think it's kind of silly to speculate on that now at this point going forward. At some point, will they use something like that to motivate them? Will it distract them? Honestly, who the heck knows? So we know that's there. I don't really think it's something that's predictive for handicapping. So we're just going to say, yeah, that exists, but I don't know what to do with it. So putting that aside, Creighton's really good. UNLV is not. This might be one of the weaker UNLV teams. We've seen them have a lot of good teams over the last half decade or so. Their offense is okay. Their defense is really struggling. And my goodness, if you put that Creighton offense, number 1 efficiency in the country, just insanely good. They don't play overly fast, but they can put up it's almost just like we talked about with Arizona last week when we said they feel like they can put up 100 against anybody, and they got to 98. Same thing with Creighton. It's like they don't play fast, but their offense is so efficient they can put up 100 against anybody. And against UNLV's defense, I'm not saying they get to 100, but like that's on the table, and that says a lot right there. The fact that Creighton could do that. Sideline says they should win by 18.4. We're going to lay the lumber with them, laying 13.5 as an A grade. We talk about it's harder to get to the A grade threshold the further away you get from 0, but this is one of them where the model just says this is a massive mismatch. Even though it's on the road, Creighton should be able to take care of business. They're really good. I don't know what else there's to say beyond that, Jake. How do you add to just Creighton is really good?
I mean, there's not much. It's just Creighton is fantastic. The fact this is 13.5 is crazy because this game should be up in the 20s as a line. It doesn't really make sense to me. If Creighton has shown anything besides the Colorado State game, which once again I think we can just toss that one out, they absolutely destroy teams. They never let off the gas, especially weaker teams. They beat Central Arkansas by 45, Nebraska by 29. Oklahoma State kept it at 14, but still covers this number. You had 23 to Loyola Chicago. It's just they destroy teams. Their offense is so good. They don't even play at that fast of a pace. They play at a very average pace, but they are just unstoppable on the offensive end. The only thing I wish they would do more, I mean, their defense is very good. I just wish they'd force a little turnovers, but because they're ranking towards the bottom there, a few extra possessions would help this offense, would just make this team unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm not a D1 coach that's doing as well as McDermott is here. So I think he has got I think this team is better than last year's team, and a big part of that is Baylor Shireman's playing like he did was it South Dakota or North Dakota?
Yeah.
One of those two. One of the Dakotas he played. I don't know why there's two Dakotas anyway.
Or which one state? Because there's like 4 schools between North Dakota State, South Dakota State. I can't keep them straight.
Yeah, they are absolutely fantastic. Ashworth was a great grab. This UNLV team, I mean, that's I don't want to take anything away from the tragedy, but I think that game right after is who they are. I don't think it was distraction or anything like that. I think that is much closer to who they are and who they're going to be this year, and it's just going to be a down year, and that sucks because UNLV is fun when they're playing well. They're fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's kind of what the model's pointing out is just they just aren't that good, and they may be a roller coaster of a team with who knows highs and lows. We don't know, right? But we just say on average, they aren't a very good team, and you put a not very good team against Creighton, and like you mentioned, the results could just get outrageous because this Creighton team is just so incredibly good. And I want to talk about the Colorado State game just real quick because if you've been with us for any time, you've heard us talk about this, but. On average, a college basketball team plays 30 games, and 5 of them they're going to look way better than they are, and 5 of them way worse. At this point of the season, each team has probably played a game that they've looked too good and a game that they've looked too bad on average. And you just, like you say, you just toss those because it's not really overly predictive. And Creighton will have another bad game. They will have another stinker. And we don't know when it's going to come. If we could predict that, I don't know, it wouldn't be gambling anymore, right? We would be fortune tellers. So unfortunately, we don't know when that's going to happen. But on average, you don't expect that bad game because we've seen way more good games than bad games. And the same with UNLV, we see way more mediocre games from them, especially relative to what we've been used to from this program, who's usually been much friskier, I feel like, than this team presents itself as. Jake, I was on with you about this off show, and we'll talk about this in our next pick as well. I don't love that laying points is now the thing, but as we talked about with the rule change and the offenses just being the top offenses being better, the models had a hard time catching up. I think that's why it struggled with sides so far, and the books have had a hard time catching up, and just laying points is kind of where it's at right now. That's not my default as a bettor. My default as a bettor is to go to the underdogs, but it's like laying points and overs, the things that your square quote unquote bettors would do, where we talk about the difference between a sharp and a square is the number and the price, not the pick itself, but the actual number and the price. But the quote unquote square bettor would just lay whatever number and go over whatever number and not care. And it's like, that strategy's actually probably been okay if you're doing that this year because the way the game is played. So I still think we want to be careful with that. We want to do it for every single situation, but this is a situation where that number just should be a lot higher. Like you said, on average, probably closer to 20. And again, Sidelines is 18.4.
Yeah, it's just Creighton is not getting enough love here, and that surprises me because they're in a big conference in the Big East that has some names. They just don't have that superstar player that's really showing up this year, and I think that's kind of helping them. I mean, I think people thought that Nembhard, and I was one of them, that losing Nembhard was going to be a bigger loss than what it was. They seem to just plug and play and go. Man, they're fun to watch, and they are so good.
I feel like there's lots of things we'll say about this game. I feel like Creighton now is about where Houston was probably 2 years ago, where the advanced analytics, the advanced metrics, whatever you want to call them, were kind of like, hey, this Houston team's really good. And the media and the general public were kind of like, okay, they're good. That's before Creighton is like, this Creighton team is really good. Obviously, they're doing it differently, Creighton with offense and Houston with defense. But I feel like that same sort of like now Houston's getting a little bit more respect because they've been doing it for a couple of years. But there was a time when the metrics were telling us, hey, Houston's a really good team. And just because they haven't won a championship doesn't mean they're still not a really good team. And that's where Creighton is now, where the general public is not quite. Sideline has them at number 2. it's a really tight race. The difference between number 2 and number 4 and number 5 is not big. I'm not saying definitively they're their second best team, but they are really good. They're up in that top tier, top set of teams, and so we're going to lay it with them. Again, doesn't mean they will cover that. There are no locks in sports betting, but on average, a typical game of this would be Creighton closer to 20 than a number like 13. So A grade pick for us there, which will wrap us up with Seattle and San Francisco. Lather, rinse, repeat what we just said, except we're going to turn down a few things. Number one, obviously, San Francisco, not as good as Creighton. Seattle, probably not as good as UNLV, though. You've also flipped the location, so that helps San Francisco out. And we don't have quite as big of an edge. That's why this is a B grade. Sideline says San Francisco by 12, so like 9.5 gets us to a B grade. So it's kind of a similar story. The talent gap is a little bit smaller here, but we flipped the location, laying a little bit less of a number, a little bit less of an edge, but pretty similar story in that this is a pretty big mismatch. This San Francisco defense is legit. Overall, the San Francisco team, I'm not sure they're quite there yet. There's been a lot of talk about the West Coast Conference one day being a 3-bid league, and it just hasn't quite come to fruition yet, where they've got 3 good teams. We kind of thought there would be a time when BYU and Gonzaga and St. Mary's, but maybe there was one off here, but it just didn't quite. It just has been 2 teams for the most part running away with it. And of course now BYU's, in a different conference. But this San Francisco team is like on the cusp of getting to that level. They're not quite there yet at number 65. Really, to be an at-large team, you want to be in the top 40. But it's possible with that defense, they could make a run at it and actually maybe be kind of competitive in there as a third team. The third teams in that conference have typically just fallen way behind, but San Francisco's pretty good. This is one of the better, third banana teams in the West Coast Conference that we've seen in quite a while. Jake, we think San Francisco by 12 on average. They're laying 9.5. Worth a play. Not our favorite of the day, but still a pretty solid one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the San Francisco defense. I think they are absolutely top tier. The offense has some work to do, and you see that with when their 3 losses: Boise State, Grand Canyon, Arizona State. Those are Arizona State, yeah, but Boise State, Grand Canyon, much more complete teams have that offense to go to solve the defense. They're very low scoring. Like Boise State was 63-58. You've got to get more points in today's college basketball than what San Francisco's given there. The thing is, the reason I like this pick so much is Seattle is bad. There's no disguising it. They turn the ball over so many times, and that is going to be absolutely detrimental to with a team like San Francisco. That's going to give them their offense all the more chances. And Seattle tries to win with defense. You're not going to out defense San Francisco. They just don't have that talent. They don't have that ability. I think this is going to be closer to like 15-17 rather than the 9.5 the books are thinking. I'm a little higher on San Francisco than Sideline is there. I think they might be the second best team. I don't have a lot of faith in St. Mary's.
St. Mary's definitely been inconsistent, so absolutely not crazy to have that opinion that this could be a year where we see a different team in number 2. Maybe I think, like you said, San Francisco's the offense has got to get a little better. They haven't quite done. There's a lot of season left for them to just take that one step forward offensively, and they got a shot.
Yeah, and get some of these threes to fall. They're shooting low 30s. If you move that to 33, 34, I think it's a whole world of difference. But until that happens, it's going to be hard against the really good teams to back them. But I think they'll handle their business against teams like Seattle and like DePaul. They went almost to Minnesota and won by 20, and Minnesota's not a bad team. They can really put it on you when they have a chance.
Yeah. All right. So San Francisco here going to wrap us up with the late slot, laying the points with them for a B grade pick. There is your recap. And again, remember, you can join us over on Dub Club for more picks, totals, overs, undersides, spreads, money lines, all sorts of goodies. And again, if you want, there's that sign up QR code. Again, you can click the link in the show description, get $5 off your first month. Jake, parting words before we reset and talk about some football.
I'm happy we're almost through all the finals week, so we're starting to get into real conference play, and it's going to be just good game after good game after good game. I'm so excited for the rest of the year in January, February, and even March.
And you talk about good games. You know, we're now up here in Indy, I guess, for good, since this is where the the Mrs. Professor baby thing kind of happened. And our good friends down the road went to grad school at Duke, and of course, Mrs. Professor went to grad school at Baylor. And 8 days from now, by the time you're watching this, 7 days from now, Baylor will play Duke. And so we were actually talking about that game. So we got some good games coming up here in the future. So yeah, getting through finals week is tough. That's when your coaches want your softer games. So it's been a little bit stretching for some good quality, but the quality of basketball is about to jump up here, hopefully in the next week or so for us. You get a lot of great picks over there on Dub Club. If you're not watching the NFL show, make sure you catch that as well. Otherwise, we'll see you later.